everybody, and welcome. It is April, it is spring, and April showers bring, fill in the blank, definitely not inventory, because there's not very much of that. We'll tell you about that in just a second. Today we're going to talk about interest rates. They went up. You probably heard about this. They went up kind of a lot. What does that mean for the Chicago market? You're probably wondering. Well, today you're going to get your answer. Before we get into that, though, I like to always remind you that every single sub-market is different. So what's going on in Naperville is going to be different than what's going on in Arlington Heights. Oak Park, different than Wicker Park, right? So if you want to know what's going on in your own backyard, fill out the form on our website. The link is below in the comments section, or if you're already watching this on our website, then you're halfway there. It's that form just below. Fill out your name, your email, and the neighborhood that you are interested in. We will send you a handcrafted report on the market of your choice, which may be substantially different than everything I'm about to tell you. So I recommend it. Before we talk about interest rates, let's run through the numbers and see what prices are doing, and then we'll check supply and demand. Sound good? In the Chicagoland market, overall, home prices are up 11.3% year over year. They're back on the move. I told you they were flat for a little while, and they've been increasing again over the past few months. By the way, compared to 2019, home prices are up 24.7% compared to this month of 2019. In the city of Chicago, they're up 3.6% year over year to 335,000. That's been pretty flat for quite a while now, really since July. I kind of didn't believe it, so I pulled the raw data to check this. And while I do see a little bit of an increase from July, it really hasn't moved at all in the last 4 months. So pretty interesting there. Downtown Chicago up 1.2% has also been flat for a while. As for where home prices are going to go next, we of course want to look at supply and demand. Starting on the demand side of things, in the Chicagoland market, there were 11.4% fewer contracts in the past month than there were in the same month the year before. That's right, fewer. We talked about this a little bit last month, but there's so little inventory out there to buy right now. It's not that demand is actually down. It's just there's nothing to buy, so we can't measure it that way. We're going to talk about some other ways of measuring demand in a little bit. Stick with us for that. By the way, some people want to know how it's compared to pre-pandemic. We get that question a lot. Compared to 2019, there were 4.2% more contracts in the Chicagoland market than in the past month than there were in the same month in 2019. So overall demand is still up. It's just there's not as much to buy right now. Looking at the city of Chicago, demand was also down only 3.1%, so pretty flat. And compared to 2019, it was up 31.2%. So we're still way higher than we were a couple of years ago in the city. And in downtown Chicago, demand is up. That's the one part of the market where demand is higher, 11.2%. It's been going higher for a long time as measured by contracts, and it's just what I've said. In downtown Chicago, it's still a little bit of a buyer's market. There's actually something to buy. So that's why we're able to measure the increase in demand and see those contracts going up. By the way, March's 627 contracts, that's the second highest monthly contract number for the downtown market that we have on the books, going all the way back to 2008. The highest was in April of last year, and April is typically the highest month of the year. So it looks like we could have another record month shaping up this month. All right, moving on to the supply side of things. Overall in the Chicagoland market, supply of homes is down 33.7% year over year, and it was already pretty low last year. In fact, it's down by about 2/3 since this time in 2020. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that as homes hit the market, they get snapped up because demand is so high, like we just talked about. But check this out. There were fewer new listings to hit the market in March of 2022 than there were in March of 2020. Remember March of 2020? That's right, the global cataclysm that we hadn't had in 100 years. Yeah, there were more people who listed their homes in that March than there were in this past March. So home sellers, where are you? This is one of the best sellers markets in history, and you're missing it. Contact us, and we will make sure that you don't. Moving into the city of Chicago, there are 29.0% fewer homes for sale than the same time last year. And in downtown Chicago, 39.7% fewer homes for sale. This is also 7 to 8% less than there were in March of 2019, still higher than 17 or 18. So again, in the downtown market, supply had a lot further to fall because this time last year it was much higher. Okay, so it's down quite a bit since then. So let's move on to the big news of the month, interest rates. Remember when we were saying interest rates are historically low and they're not going to stay that way forever? Well, they didn't. A couple of weeks ago, interest rates shot up dramatically. They're now 1.5 points higher than they were at their low. So the question is that going to affect buyer demand, right? So contracts are one way to look at it. Short answer, not yet, okay? We haven't seen any buyers drop out of the market because interest rates shot up and they suddenly don't want to buy a home anymore. Interest rates definitely encourage people to get into the market, but it's not the primary reason that people buy a home. Right now, there's just a big cultural movement towards home ownership, and that's the main thing driving it. So we haven't seen a ton of people drop out yet, right? That is a leading indicator, but it's not maybe the first leading indicator. But again, it's really a little bit too soon to tell. So we wanted to look at another leading indicator, which is mortgage purchase pre-approvals. Okay, so we chatted with a few of our favorite lenders, and here's what they had to say. Jim Pompicelli with Lakeside Bank says, despite the drastic increase in rates, we have not seen any borrowers drift out of the market because of rate or payment concerns. Because of the super competitive real estate market, we probably have twice as many buyers who are pre-approved compared to the year before. Basically, rates are up 1.5%, but demand is twice as high compared to what is closing. So what Jim's saying here is that there's so much more demand than supply, which we just talked about a minute ago, that even if a few buyers do drop out, which he's not seeing, but even if a few did drop out, it's not affecting the market because there's just so few homes for sale that there's plenty of buyers for all of them. Now let's check in with Amy Renkus from Proper Rate. Amy says, despite the dramatic increase in interest rates lately, most of my buyers are still actively looking to buy. However, more are seriously looking at how these higher rates are making the higher priced homes much less affordable. Budget and qualifying at higher rates and payments will slow things down. So she cautions that it's too early to have any kind of hard data on this, but she does think that we're going to see a bit of a cool off on home prices because buyers can't pay dramatically over listing price and pay this higher rate. So we're going to see these bidding wars become a little bit less fervent than they have been. So kind of a different opinion compared to what you just heard, but both of those things can be true. Let's check with another lender. Terrence Terrell with Molitor Financial. Hey, Terrence. Thanks for chiming in. Terrence says, I've not seen any slowdown in purchases with the rising interest rates. If anything, I've seen activity increase as some buyers that were dragging their feet are being more aggressive to close before rates get much higher and their purchasing power diminishes too much. With rates holding so low for so long, there wasn't as much urgency to get this contract, but now people have seen that rates are going up and they may continue to go up. And so now they're thinking, oh man, if I don't get this home, it's going to be a lot more expensive in a couple of months just because interest rates increase, right? So now they're doing this math saying, I'm desperate to win this bidding war. I might as well pay $10,000 more because that's going to have the same impact on my monthly payment as an increase in interest rates would. So in the near term, this increase in interest rates may have the opposite effect of what everyone thinks it's going to do. It's going to encourage people to be even more frantic, and it's going to make them at the same time be even more willing to pay more because they know it's cheaper than waiting. Speaking of waiting, where are interest rates going to go next? Now, you may have heard that the Federal Reserve just increased interest rates for the first time in a while. They hiked them up about 1/4 point. And you may have also heard that they plan to do this again many more times over the coming months through the end of the year. And you may think, oh no, mortgage rates are going to go much, much higher as a result. That's not exactly how it works. So let's talk about how it does work so you know what to look for so you can get an idea of where those rates are going to go in the future. The Fed is going to hike rates several more times this year, but that doesn't necessarily mean that rates are going to go up. In fact, it's unlikely, but it's possible that they could even go down in a certain set of circumstances after a Fed rate hike. Here's why. The market already expects the Fed to hike rates over the next year, so that's priced in, okay? What you want to watch for is if the Fed hikes rates more or less than they've already announced that they're going to do, because that changes expectations. But the Federal Reserve isn't the only thing that impacts mortgage interest rates. In fact, the dark horse here is inflation. We're not really quite sure how this is going to impact things. Here's how it works. When you get a mortgage, your bank packs it up with a whole bunch of other mortgages and sells it to investors. And so when you're making your monthly payment, that's actually going to those investors, to oversimplify things a little bit. So imagine those investors bought a whole bunch of mortgages at 4.5% interest, but then inflation is 5 or 6 or 7%. Not a great deal for them, right? So they might be less interested in buying those mortgage bonds. And if they're less interested in buying mortgage bonds and you still want a mortgage, the interest rates are going to have to go up to make it more appealing for those investors. So there's a lot of things impacting inflation right now, but a big one is oil prices. If oil prices increase, that makes it more expensive to get everything, because oil, for better or for worse, actually just for worse, is how we get all the stuff that you want to where it needs to be, okay? So if it's more expensive to do that, you got to pay more for that stuff. It's also how we make plastic. Increase in oil prices makes everything more expensive. That means inflation goes up, and that means mortgage rates do too. So if you want to know where mortgage rates are going, 2 things to look for. 1, the Federal Reserve. You just need to keep an ear out if they increase rates or even suggest that they might increase rates by more than was anticipated. That means rates could go up. If they're going to hike rates by less than what's anticipated, rates could go down. So that's the first thing, the Fed. The second thing, geopolitics. An oil embargo in Russia, a release from the strategic reserve, a move towards peace, which would be fantastic for a lot of reasons. All of these things will impact the price of oil, which is going to impact inflation. And inflation impacts mortgage interest rates. Make sense? If you have any questions about any of this stuff, drop them in the comments below. We'd be happy to answer them for you. And as always, if you have any questions about what this means for you, you really need to know what's going on in the market you live in. So fill out that form on our website. It's in the comments, or if you're on our website, it's right there below you. Name, email, neighborhood or community of your choice. We'll get that over to you. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe, because we put these market updates out every month. The real estate market changes often, so you don't want to miss it. We'll see you next time.